So, hello everyone, good morning, good afternoon, and very good evening to all you wonderful participants who have joined me today on our Zoom class for the topic of discussion on Montessori Trays. So, this is going to be one of the important material in your Montessori class, which is not only helping you to work with your children to transform your class dynamics, but it is also helping your children to work on elevating the experiences that they are going to be getting when your trays are all set. Now, what is the first thing that is coming to your mind when you see such beautiful trays neatly arranged, which are so colorful and so aesthetic? What comes to your mind? What's the first thought that comes to your mind? What is the first thing that comes to your mind?
Harder. I want to do something.
You want to go touch those objects, you want to play with them, you want to explore with them, right? You don't know because they're looking so pleasing, isn't it? So this is something that is going to inspire the children also. So whenever you're working with Montessori traits, just remember, any topic that you are presenting in your class, what is our first exercise? You need to collect the Montessori tray and collect objects or materials and place it onto the tray. So your material is ready. So your class preparation activity is all ready for you to actually work on, isn't it? So this is something that we are going to be working on. Now, why do I do that? So that I don't have to pull in my children and create a separate interest. Once the child sees such beautifully, neatly arranged objects or materials in the tray, don't you think that's a gateway for the children to work on hands-on exercises? So they are self-directed to pick those objects, correct? So that is the reason that Dr. Montessori said, if at all, if you want to help the children develop the fine motor skills, and if you want them to work on developing concentration in class, if you want them to focus on a particular material for a very longer period of time, or if you want children to work on all the different sensorial education, you need to have a proper holistic approach. And Montessori trays are a great tool in that particular thing. So, what are we going to do in this particular lesson is I'm going to be teaching you what are all the different kinds of trays that we use it in our classes. You might not see it once for all, but it has to be prepared by the teacher. So, what you would get it in nature, what would you get it? Not in nature, you would generally get a regular tray like this from the market, right? The trays can be of different sizes. The trays can hold different objects depending upon what you want, what purpose you're going to have a choice of your trays. Some schools will also have baskets. Some schools will also have those wooden bowl kind of a thing. That's absolutely okay. Is it solving my purpose? Am I collecting all my objects into that material is something that I have to be working on. So I'm going to be helping my class in choosing it. So are we clear with this? What we need to have? We need to have many such trays in our class environment. The trays can be of different sizes. The trays can be of different partitions also. Okay. Now what I would do over here. Now since I consider this is very essential, why? Hands-on exercises. And whatever is the activity, I have to collect my objects into that so that it becomes a purposeful activity. Now, what will my children do? They carry the tray, they go to a place, they walk steadily, they place the tray down, and then they start engaging their work. Much before this, we also learned on where do they keep? Where do they settle the tray? On the mat. So you should have introduced rolling and unrolling a mat for the children much before. Only after that, you would start working on introducing the Montessori trays for our children. Clear everyone so far? So this is all clear. So we're going to be working on this. So what are we doing as you teachers? You're going to work on integrating materials. You're going to integrate lessons. You're going to integrate areas like math area, sensorial area, language area, you have to work on it because you want to use this technique very, very effectively. Okay, now the magic really happens. Are we only going to be teaching about objects or what? What are we going to be teaching? So, teaching is different. We're going to do the teaching part later. But first, you need to understand about every tray and setting up every tray. Please note down the first Montessori tray is called the sensorial tray. Please fill in everyone. The first Montessori tray is called sensorial tray. Please write down, note down. Okay, so these are not there in your books, but if you join to our Montessori schools, it's important. Okay, now what do we have in these sensorial trays? I need to fill up with some sand. I can fill up with some rice, lentils, anything that gives me a good amount of sensory education. Wherein, if I am touching those objects, if I'm touching that material on the tray, which is in the tray, I'm trying to engage my senses. I'm trying to refine my motor skills. Correct? See, for example, if at all, if I'm been introducing a straight line to the child, I will have a copy control card, which will tell me about draw a line from top to bottom. So I can take my sensory tray, I can start drawing. Now, do you see here this one? There is a zigzag, there is a wave, and you see that we are trying to draw that wave onto the sensory tray, right? So the patterns can be drawn. Now, why is it colorful? Because the base, what you have given, is colorful. If the base is brown, if you want it to look colorful, you can keep a paper of a different color and then sprinkle the sand. If you don't have sand, you can put rava. If you don't have rava, you can put salt. But usually we don't put salt. We can use rava or something, the suji we can actually put, and we can ask the children to trace using that. This is very important. Now, what are all the different materials I can actually have? So anytime in my sensory tray, I have to get the sensation of my senses, right? Whether it is rough, whether it is smooth, whether it is granular, correct? And what about the smell? Now, what kind of a smell it is? Is it pungent or is it the essence is really good? You really like the aroma of that. And what about the taste of it? Is it sweet? Is it sour? Anything. Whatever you want to experience, which is related to your nine senses, could be the sense of visual sense, sense of hearing, auditory sense of smell, olfactory, sense of taste, gustatory sense. All of that does matter to us. And that is something that we are going to be creating in our first tray. That's our sensorial tray in Montessori. I want you to write. So are you able to write it down? Are you able to list it? Amazing. Okay. So you can have anything. If it is visual sense, maybe colors. If it's again related to texture and the color, maybe I can collect leaves. I can start sorting all of that, right? So only thing is like this entire tray section will be educating the children on experiencing senses itself. So this is going to be my first section, and this trays are called sensory trays. The second trays that we use in our classes, they are called practical life trays. Practical life trays. Now, here is where you're going to be helping children to work on their simple exercises, simple day to day exercises, wherein they're going to be working on developing their fingers on the fine motor development or the exercises that they're doing in their day to day life. Like, say, for example, pouring something from one bowl to another, squeezing, or pouring something into a different container which has got a different capacity, right? Pegging something, needling something, say pinning something, all those exercises I can actually have it. Even arranging flowers, dressing frames can be there, right? So anything and everything which is helping me to work on my day to day life skill, which is helping children to become independent, is what is going to be arranged in these trays. So I can at least purchase some 10 to 15 trays for my practical life shelves, isn't it? So my shelf is set. Now people also asked me on the other day, Divya ma'am, there are many children in my class, but should I have the same thing 10 times? No. The purpose of setting up these classrooms is one material is one tray. The second material is a different tray. If the child has to practice that skill, they will wait for their turn. Meanwhile, they can practice some other skill, like say pouring. If one child is learning pouring, maybe you can teach them to pour something from one container to another, which is identical. For another child, I can give them a different material which is even more heavier. So you're trying to add challenge there. For the other child, you're giving liquid pouring, which is even more challenging. Correct? So anything that you have involves liquid transfers, it becomes even more challenging for our children to actually work on. So each skill has to be one tray. So don't duplicate your trays, but keep it different and keep changing. And what about the colors? Keep it colorful. As far as possible, keep your trays in the brown color. So I would suggest you can use any sturdy tray, and which can be square or rectangular, which has to be child sized, which the child will be able to carry easily from one place to another. Now, what about those materials that I've actually kept? Is it the toy materials? They have to be real, for real. If it's a glass pitcher, it has to be a picture. It's a mug, it has to be the real child sized mug. Only then the child will know the importance of handling that material in a very delicate way. They will be more careful, they'll be more cautious. If it's toy, they might be careless because they understand even if it falls, it doesn't get broken. But here they are extra cautious because anything falls can crack and it can actually destroy that material itself, right? So this is our second tray. The first one was sensory trays. Second one is our practical tray. The third one is related to our language tray. Now, language tray is where you might have to be working a lot to help and build vocabulary. The first thing for me is related to identifying my pictures and identifying my objects. So what happens here, in case if I have those tiny miniature objects, I can bring an object and I'm associating an object to the picture. Now, what are these pictures called? These pictures are called classified cards. Now, what are classified cards? Classified cards are three-part cards in which we are helping the children to recognize the picture and associate the name with it. Now, you see that there is a name that is attached to the picture itself. And I would be able to figure out. Now, say I have taken four different trays. If I ask anything which is related to musical instruments, I set everything there. Then, in case if I have anything related to my community helpers tools, I can bring that tool and I can say that these are the tools which is used by carpenter, right? Jigsaw, then I have a screwdriver, I have pliers, right? I have a hammer. We can definitely have many tools which a carpenter can actually be using. So, what is the purpose of these trays? Language. So, I have to educate the children to work on the vocabulary development over here. You can begin by oral education. Slowly, you will go to transforming. So now you will go to writing. Correct? So when you introduce writing, you will always start with sandpaper letter. Why sandpaper letter? You take that sandpaper letter, you trace the letter according to the direction. Now, multiple times you have reinforced the child to trace on it, and the child has understood the direction of that writing and is also able to listen and differentiate the sound of that letter. Correct? Now, the letter E has two sounds, short vowel A, long vowel E. Right? So, I can also introduce and associate an object with that. I can say E is for elephant. The sound is eh, elephant. I can say eh, elephant. And how do I write it? I have to choose a tray which has partitions. Now, do you notice there are different kinds of trays? Language trays are totally different. You have multiple partitions in the same tray. If you find anything similar to this kind of a tray in the market, you can purchase. This is going to be really helpful for our children to sort. They can keep a letter at one, they can keep objects at one, and the other compartment can be for reinforcement. So I can have these kinds of smaller pebbles wherein it has been colored. If I color, I have to make sure the color is non-toxic. so that the children would never be affected by the colors because they are regularly touching it. Okay, so what else that we can actually work on? The fourth tray that we use in our classes, they're related to our math conceptions. The fourth tray is our math. Okay, so do I begin with numbers initially in math? No, I never start with number one, number two, number three. Rather, I work with very simple, tangible activities wherein I can introduce children to count first. I can introduce children to work on my pre-math. Is what about the size of it? Is it big or is it small? Right? Can you count the number of beads? Can you sort them based on the colors? Can you tell me about the weight? Is it heavy or is it light? Can you keep this ball a little far? Or can you put the book into the box or onto the shelf? So I would first work with my pre-mathematical conceptions to our children. So based on my concepts, my trays would get arranged. So it's very simple. Whatsoever could be the conceptual, you need to reinforce. What's the only idea for us when we are working with young children, like maybe like 2 to 5 years, 2 to 6 years, children easily get distracted. And when you give them more of writing, it becomes a monotonous work for the child to actually write. When it is activity oriented, you are engaging the child in a playful way, and you would never know how quickly the child will be able to write it. Now, what are the different ones that I actually have? The first one is on the peg, right? And if you see on the tree that there are number of apples, if the card says 6, I have to pick up 6 of those pom poms and I have to be place it onto my tree. So it's helping me on the coordination between my fingers. I need to apply a lot of pressure to get that pom pom, isn't it? And I have to keep that pressure till I move it further. I find the tree and I go down and I transfer it onto the tree. So till that time, the child will have to be holding the peg, applying the pressure. So the more that you give activities on the spincer grip, right, on your finger grip, it helps the child to benefit on developing their muscular memory. This is one thing. Second thing, we encounter with many curves and lines when the children are making numbers and patterns. So for that, reinforcement of the pattern, so you would help the children to trace. The third thing could be on colors. Colors is also a math conception. And you can also talk about count the number of flowers. Flowers are yellow color, so it's a sunflower. Again, the vocab comes, again, the counting comes, again, the reinforcement of the colors are actually coming. Next, in the fourth picture, if you see, we have 3 and 5. So that's a picture card or a symbol card. Beneath that, we do have 3 mushrooms and 5 strawberries or apples, right? So you're trying to associate a number to the picture. So these are all the stages at which the teacher can actually work so that the child would be able to understand and relate the concepts at the earlier itself. They could be shadow objects, even the shadows. If you see right below that 3 and 5, you have another tray which talks about shadow, where the sweater is there, an apple is there. The child should also be able to differentiate the shadow images. Correct? So all those, even patterns, the child should be able to work on it. So simple exercises, not only on these tangible activities, you can work on introducing numbers, you can work on introducing operations like addition, subtraction, multiplication, division, whatsoever. Your presentation is very important, and that's the reason we take up math trace. Now, the more important one, when you begin to write, especially we use this for our toddler classes and Mont 1, that's called the fine motor tray. Now, fine motor tray, as I mentioned, strengthens our muscles. What muscles? The small muscles. And not only that, it also helps me for my hand-eye coordination. So if the children don't have strength in the fingers, if the child is not having hand and eye coordination, like say for example, if I give them this pen, I open the cap and I give it. Okay? If I open the cap and I give it, only when the child has got the hand and eye being coordinated, the child will be able to put the cap rightly onto the pen. If they don't have it, the child will be struggling where to put. Right? The smaller you go, difficult it becomes. That is one. Scissors, cutting. Cutting skills is also very important for me. It's very difficult for a child. The child does not know how to hold a scissor. right? And the entire scissor is being managed by three fingers, correct? So they have to apply the entire pressure. The child will not know when to open the the forefinger and how to apply pressure and do a cut. So introducing at stage by stage, cutting is also essential. When you put some object and you ask the child to trace around it, when they don't have a good pressure on that object, say for example, if I want to trace my mouse, if I don't have a good pressure from this hand, these objects keep moving, isn't it? The third tray is where I'm going to help my children to work on my tracing, picking smaller objects, pegging all of them, associating, coloring, painting, sharpening, using cloth pins, threading, tweezing, squeezing. What else can be there?
Scooping.
Scooping, spooning, pouring, turning the pages from the book, everything in the first EPL preliminary exercises, we need to work on the fine motor skill trace. Clear, all of you? So this is my fifth tray that I'm going to be working on. Then the most important one is your art and craft tray. Now here is where we become a little bit more creative, we become more expressive. The children can imagine their world, how well that they want to paint and conduct exercises, right? So what we need to be working over here is, like, in case if you're using a wooden tray, you can be a little bit more cautious. You can put a plain paper or a newspaper underneath, so your tray is never spoiled. Correct? So you are going to be collecting paints. You can even keep papers where the child is going to draw. You can also give them Play-Doh, which can be a little messier in that tray, but you tell children to finish their work in the tray itself. So this is for your art and craft purposes. For example, I can have anything related to clay. I can have polishes. I can have impressions of dried flower. I can even melt wax and put it into a different thing. Do a color coding. Messy work like sculpting or playing with the clay or Play-Doh, repainting all of them, right? So all these can be in my art and craft play, and we don't do it on the table separately. Children can use these trays itself, right? So it becomes easy to clean up that smaller space also, and it can be a little mess free. Okay, so this is there. And this is the most curious one, which comes in your cultural part. We call these trays as nature and science trays. It's called the nature and the science trays. Why do we work here? We ask children to take the tray with them. They can go to the natural world. So when I say go to the natural world, they step out of your campus. Maybe if there is a nearby garden or the schoolyard, they can go there and they start acting and behaving like a scientific person, okay, wherein they start exploring. So how do they explore? They can collect anything. It could be even a pebble, that's good. Leaf, good. But what you have to make sure here, you need to keep a magnifying glass there. The child should be able to see the larger thing. So this is where that appreciation comes. The child will understand how beautiful every object in the nature is. When you don't introduce this little happiness to children, and you always give them those expensive toys, the child will lose out the touch and stay connected with the nature, which is so good, so refreshing. You have to make sure that the children walk barefoot. They can feel the grass. They have to feel the mud. But these days, the parents say, due to hygiene and other thing, we don't. But if it is a proper Montessori school, they ask the children to experience different surfaces on the barefoot, right? The child will have to experience. The more that you're grounded to nature, the more healthier, the more happier you are. So what we do, we just let them to explore, let them collect as many objects as possible. You can even keep some balls if there are tiny pebbles that they want to collect, or any kind of little things, even the worms if they find, like earthworm and other things, they can take. So always better, you can put gloves to your children, right? In case if the mud is a little wetty, if it's little clogged up, if it's little clay, you can always give them to be a little bit more extra cautious, like boots and other things, you can always give it. So this is one. But if the teachers go on themes, And if a teacher says, children, no, this is science theme, since we are learning only about plants, you are now restricted to pick anything and everything which is related to plants. Now you're going thematic, correct? And maybe the teacher is teaching about the theme like fall. So you can always have the fall theme. So in the fall theme, whatever you find, different kinds of leaves, different color leaves, right? Acorns, all of that you can actually collect, and that's how you would work onto it. So this is your nature and science trace. Okay. Now do you see the difference? I'm talking about nomenclature cards. Parts of a tree. The first one here, wherein we have a small part of a tree which has been colored into multiple parts. Only the leaf is colored. That's a nomenclature card. In the second picture here, can you see here? Can everybody see what I'm trying to say? The first tray. If you see that there are 3 trees, red color is what is marked. So you're educating the children the part of the tree. And down, if you see that there are puzzles, there are puzzles of a tree, and now the child can fix up those puzzles. So they would be able to make a beautiful tree. So there are 3 branches, and the tree is colorful. The leaves are green as in nature. You're educating that. So you can always bring some puzzles over there. So likewise, I can also have plants growing. So I can bring in some seeds, I can grow the seeds, and I can show them the different stages from seed to seedling to a tiny plant and a large plant. Right? So I bring mud to class. I put my seed, I plant it, I take it outside, I keep it in the sunlight. So I educate children that the plant needs soil, water, manure, and sunlight and air to grow healthy. Right? So those would be your observation times, observation lessons in your classes. And these are some of the lesson plans that you can actually work on. Okay. Now, some more. If you want to teach about landforms, if you want to teach them about planets, if you want to teach them about aquatic animals, if you want to teach them about how water changes its color from region to region, like some oceans, they are light blue. Some of the beaches, they're light blue. Why? Some of them look very dirty. Some might look very darker. Some might look gray. Some might look deeper blue. Right? It depends again upon the whatever is at the bottom beneath, right? The surface that could be there. So you can teach about different animals in different regions. All of these can be segregated in our cultural aspects, and wonderfully, if you are arranging these toys, maybe you can arrange, like, shelf for a week. Day 1, day 2, day 3, day 4, day 5, day 6. And keep repeating the same trays over and again in the next week also. So what happens now? Try to correlate between your math conceptuals. Try relate it to your sensory concepts. Now you ask children, what color would come if I mix my red and yellow? I can get this. So when you're making a planet using clay, you can show them how the colors do change and come back. How colors can make a lot of difference, right? So even cotton pads, you can take that cotton pads and you can make an art and craft out of it. You have to just take blue ink and a little bit of green ink and sprinkle or just drop it down. So let it absorb however it wants. It will have patches of blue and green, and you can tell children this is how the globe looks like. And the blue part is ocean, the green part is all about our vegetation and plantation. See, your crafts need not be so difficult. It is all about the way that you are going to be arranging your classes. You can hide some of the animals in the sand tree. You can ask the children to hunt back the animals, and they can say the names, and they can say whether it is aquatic, whether it is land, whether it is a water animal, or whether it's an air animal. Can you see the second tray there? That gives me the differences between the land, air, and water. So I have to have a picture which associates to my land. For that, I can put some grains. I can have another tray for air. I can just put a blue color, base. For water, I can really fill my tub with water. The child knows it's a water animal. They gently put it into the water animal itself. So these are some of the few examples that you can always work on it. Okay. The next one, the next kind of a tray is called the geography and cultural tray. Geography and cultural tray. Now, what do we do here is, like, since we are We belong to the world wherein we have many cultures, we have different geographical features, and every country has a flag, every country has a map, every country has a landmark, right? Which talks about the geographical aspect, like how big is it, how small is it, what is its population, and so on and so forth. So I can educate my children also about the place that I belong to. Now, say for example, if my school is in Bangalore, I have to be educating the children about where is this school all about, right? It is in such a small space, like in maybe Munnekolala, and then again that's in Bangalore, which is in the state Karnataka, which is there in the country India, which is there in the continent Asia, right? So I can talk about that and I can say that yes, it belongs to the solar system, and the planet what we have is called the Earth, right? So you are trying to explain children from the tiniest to the largest. So geographical trace will definitely be helpful for me to actually work on. Now, this is where you will explore a little bit more on materials. So you can teach children about maps. You can teach about in that continent what is the vegetation that grows, what are the different languages people actually talk, and what are the flags, what are the currencies of all of it, right? So this can be the geographical aspect that you're going to be working in this. Okay, now the most lovable ones are the music and movement trace, which we can use it in our circle time. So I have listed it at the end. Maybe you can put it in the front also, because most of the schools will begin with music and movement, right? So you want children to be active in the class. There has to be some kind of movement in the class also. You can't restrict the children to be seated in one class. The purpose of why we use these baskets and trays is where we are educating children to work on rhythm. We want them to work on appreciating music. We want them to sing and hum. We want them to understand the sounds of different musical instruments. When I play it very well, what should be the goal of my child? The child should get up and dance. If the child has to get up and dance, as teachers, you have to be doing it first, right? So we explore different sounds. We explore pitches, high pitch, low pitch, right? You give children about different kind of body rhythmic exercises. You can tap, you can snap, you can wave, you can clap, and then you introduce the rhythm sticks, and then you work singing your rhymes using those musical instruments, and see the joy that your children will be able to be working in your classes. The last one is called the concept tray. So it can be of any concept I can take, but I have to be presenting the concept in this way. Clear, everyone? So you can't just present a topic. So it needs a lot of effort. It needs a lot of love for the material itself, and it needs a lot of keeping the materials back safely into your respective shelves. So what you need to do, you can purchase the Ziploc pouches. Every theme is done. Pick up those cards, put it into the Ziplocs, seal it, write the name of it, and keep it. So what is that tray one? What is for tray two? So you can keep over there, and based upon the themes what you have, you will segregate and keep. Next time when you have something to be taught on the same conceptual, you can pick up, you will see is there something relevant to it, you pick that up and you can actually show. Okay, so what's the purpose of this is like to give more hands-on exercises. So this is what we actually have, and this is your first exercise in your EPL. After rolling and unrolling, you carry a tray. So Saturday some of them also ask me, why should I carry a tray, why should I carry an object, what should I do that? So the teacher would have prepared those trays and she would have kept it on the shelves when there is a theme for that week. The child will carry that tray, come back. To summarize, what are the different 10 trays? Can somebody list it out? What are the different trays? We start with
Sensorial traits,
sensorial tray,
Sensorial,
practical life
practical
traits,
life traits,
Language trace,
language,
math
language
tray,
traits,
fine motor
fine
skills
motor
tray,
fine motor skills
fine
traits,
motor
art
skills
and
tray,
craft
literature
traits,
trace, nature,
natural
history
science
and
traits,
history,
geography, cultural,
culture tray,
music and movement traits,
moment tray,
concept.
concept trace.
How confident are you? How confident are you to make up this tray. Now everybody is confident to prepare a tray. If I give you a topic, you'll know how to
Yes.
arrange it beautifully, right? So you all are very confident. Anything that I can give you. So the first assignment for all of you is you're going to be making something. So what is the first thing? Keep the tray simple. Keep simple objects. Make sure the activity or the material which is in the tray is useful for a child. Okay, in that way you're going to be preparing. Always remember it has to help the child for the overall development. So once you have kept that in mind is what now you will prepare a Montessori tray. Okay, this is your homework. This is your homework. You have to prepare a tray. Just prepare a tray and send the picture. I'll give you 1 day time. Tomorrow thak you have to send me one tray. Anything. Anything. Easy? Rekha ma'am?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, okay. So you have to prepare this and send just the picture. Not to me, you will post it into the group. Shashita, no escape. Okay, I know everybody's got a tight schedule, but we need to also move forward, correct? So I'm giving you some of the examples of how can your tree can also be like. The first thing, now say for example, if you want to talk about textures, you can go to your neighborhood and you can collect some pom-poms if you have young kids at home, or you can collect some sand, you can collect some rocks, pebbles, leaves, twigs, anything. But your tray's purpose is you're teaching children about the textures. You just want them to touch different objects. You want them to feel. So what are you encouraging? You're encouraging the tactile exploration. So you should be able to justify why did you make up the tray? What is the purpose of that activity that you're going to do? The content is nothing but what are the different objects that is there in your tray. Clear? So this is one example. Now somebody says, now Shweta says, no, I don't want. I want to keep it very simple. I don't have time to go outside. She'll say, okay, with whatever is available in my kitchen, I'm going to be working. So she says, I will do a smelling activity. So she goes to her kitchen. She kind of collects all the herbs that is there available. She might also collect some spices. She might not have bowls and jars. She might even take small cups and she can fill up all of that. Now her activity is stimulating the children to work on smell. Right? So what are we trying to work over here? On the olfactory sense. My children are now able to differentiate between various scents. Maybe coffee powder, cinnamon powder, cardamom, ginger, onions. You can ask them to smell anything. Okay, so this is one. So your purpose was stimulating the sense of smell. Okay, so this is one. Maybe Uma says, okay, I don't have all of that. Okay, so I'm traveling, but she still has some rice. She still has beans and buttons. She'll say, I'll put it into a plastic, this thing, and I'll shake it. So I am giving my children the exposure to sounds. So they're trying to explore and discriminate between, is it a soft sound? Is it a loud sound? When does it become soft? When you fill the bottle full. It becomes soft because there is no space for it to move. The density of the object is more. Okay, so this becomes your sound discovery tray. So it comes under what sense? Auditory sense. So your sensory tray. Okay, maybe Tulsi says, okay, I always take a walk. So Tulsi, I know she always goes for a walk. So Tulsi, you will be the best person to hunt on the natural items. You can collect leaves and rakes and shells and stones, whatever you find it. But you have to explore the texture of it. What is the shape of it? What is the characteristics of it? Is it too sharp? Or is it too dry? Is it too wet? Is it too squishy? All of that, maybe. Okay, I'm just giving you examples. If you find anything nice also, you can do that. Maybe like Revati might look into temperatures, like, water. Okay, maybe ice cubes, objects from the room environment, maybe warm water, anything which is related to temperatures you can actually work on. Some might also come with what they could say is like, related to the sounds when they pour, right? When I pour the rice I can hear some of the sounds. That can also be an auditory exercise, but you can also work on hand-eye coordination, fine motor exercise. When I'm pouring something from one bowl to another, when I'm scooping something from one bowl to another. So here is where we work on hand-eye coordination. We work on pouring and transferring. Okay, some more examples you need. You can still take water exercises, whether it is sinking, whether it is floating. Collect many objects. Coin, it sinks. Plastic something floats. Right? So what if I put ice cube into it? After some time it melts. Right? So you can also choose water-based sensory exercises wherein you're teaching children about fluidity. You're teaching children about the sense of wetness. Right? So these are water sensory trays. You can also work on that. Mirrors. Wonderful way actually to work on mirrors, because every time you're able to see your own self is being reflected, the object is being reflected, correct? I can explore a little bit more. So mirrors can also be one such sensory exercise that you can always look into it. Okay, so remember, each of this tray has to be your own one, your idea, whatever is available at your place. Maybe if you want to do it immediately today itself, you can do that and send. That will be the wonderful thing. You can immediately go back after the class, spend 10 minutes of time to find what it is, collect a tray, collect objects, and you just have to write what is the purpose, what are the objects that you have collected, and send it. Okay, so when you do that, when 20 of us we do that, you will see to this list we will add 20 more. 20 more will come, and then we can take it further. How beautiful it's going to be, and you can still keep on adding to the range of exercises. You're not only promoting exploration, not only helping the children to concentrate, but at the same time, you as trainees, you are giving your ideas to your other fellow members also, wherein they can also start learning and work very carefully with their children and in their classes. So this has to be the purpose of today's class, and Montessori trays are really, really helpful for all of us to actually work on. Okay, so in the last class, we left a little small topic on language experience method. So if you're okay with that, and if you have no doubts on this, we will jump to language experience method. Is that okay? With your permission, shall we go? So is the first material cleared, all of you? The trays are cleared. So 10 different kinds of trays, and you should be able to prepare any kind of tray. And you should not say, why should I carry? Like how somebody asked me in the last class, is the tray so important? They asked me, now you know the importance of tray. You all know that? Yes, no, please answer. Okay.
Yes, yes, ma'am.
Big thanks for all of you for being a part of our today's Montessori tray training session. So we hope you had a blast learning about all the cool ways that these trays can make your teaching and learning super fun in your classes. Guess what? The learning doesn't have to stop over here. We have got some exciting news. You can become a certified Montessori teacher with us. Our diploma programs are like treasure chests, which is full of awesome teaching skills. Imagine having a fancy certificate to kickstart your career as a trained teacher from International Montessori Teacher Training Institute. So the best part, you can choose how you want to learn, either online or you want to do it offline, making friends in the real classroom, whatever suits you. So ready to turn your passion into your career? Then you need to get started at the earliest. We have our admissions open. For offline, we have 3 centers in Bangalore, Munekolala, Doddanekundi, and the center close to Manyata Tech Park. You can visit to any of our class centers, collect the application forms, fill in, and you can get enrolled with us for the offline programs. For online, you can call us on the following numbers given on appointments, and my team would actually help you, and you can get your learning started. Thank you very much and have a great evening, everyone.